Good morning. Rise and shine, my friends. Today is Monday, July 15th, and this is Wake Up with KERA News. I'm Katherine Hobbs. Thank you so much for starting your morning with me today. Well, today might be our last day before we kick back up into triple-digit temps, so enjoy this very, very cool 98 degrees while you can. This weekend, former President Trump was rushed from a rally after an assassination attempt. Eyewitness accounts are starting to come in from the shooting at this weekend's Trump rally in Pennsylvania. The Texas newsroom's Lauren McGaughy spoke with Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, who was standing just behind the former president when shots rang out.
I was on the front row standing up about 30 feet from President Trump when the shooting started. There was a lady behind me actually caught a stray bullet.
Miller said he heard 6 to 8 shots ring out in about 5 seconds.
At first, I didn't realize that it was gunshots because it was, such a small caliber. It wasn't a very loud sound. The first one went off, I thought it was a balloon.
Amarillo Congressman Ronnie Jackson said his nephew's neck was grazed by a bullet during the shooting. He was seated in the Friends and Family section behind Trump, and the congressman was not present, though. Jackson said his nephew is doing well. Meanwhile, President Biden has postponed a visit to Texas. He was scheduled to speak today at the LBJ Presidential Library in Austin to commemorate the passage of the Civil Rights Act 60 years ago. The president and CEO of the LBJ Foundation says he looks forward to hosting Biden later this month. Tarrant County Commissioners' Court meetings give members of the public an opportunity to speak directly to their elected officials. Ryan Price is a senior pastor at Broadway Baptist Church in Fort Worth and part of the activist movement to lower the number of deaths at the county jail. Price was talking about one of those deaths at a meeting on July 2nd when his allotted 3 minutes ran out. Over the course of about 8 seconds, County Judge Tim O'Hare warned him twice to stop talking, then ordered the sheriff's deputies to remove him from the room. Deputies gave Price a pink trespass warning slip and told him not to come back to the building for a year. Returning would constitute a crime. A new study has linked mild COVID-19 to a new gut, brain, and lung problem that can develop up to 3 years after the viral infection is passed. These findings result from millions of veteran affair records from the first year of the pandemic before the rollout of vaccines and antivirals. Dr. Rishwara Sankara, a neurointensivist with Texas Health Fort Worth, tells KERA Sam Baker he believes this stems from inflammation.
COVID showed us that, the inflammatory process that happens, especially after a post-viral infection, can be much longer than what we anticipated before. We know from previous data, especially with Epstein-Barr virus, that, you can have long-term consequences. COVID also seems to be mimicking the same process wherein the inflammatory cascade that it triggers in our body can last up to 3 years.
So you can develop inflammation from COVID that can sort of lie dormant for a while?
What this study particularly talks about is that even after 2 years or 3 years after the infection has occurred, these sequelae can last. Like patients who are predisposed to having strokes, they can have increased risk of having strokes even up to 3 years after this infection. And this process is more seen in patients who have been hospitalized from COVID-19.
So are we talking about a possible link or a proven direct causation here?
It is hard to say. My understanding of this article is that patients who are, COVID-19 has actually affected people who had underlying medical problems like obesity and diabetes predominantly, even in younger patients who got hospitalized acutely, and mortality in these subgroups have been high. I think what COVID-19 does is it actually keeps those patients at risk, have higher risk of developing the symptoms even after 3 years after getting COVID. So I think it's kind of a chicken or an egg thing. We do not know if COVID directly causes this, but I think what it for sure does is that it basically exposes the underlying comorbidities to the extent that patient can have sequelae from it.
But this is not the same as long COVID.
It is not, because long COVID is you have continued symptoms for, say, for example, you get COVID-19 infection, and after you recover from that infection, you continue to have those problems for weeks and months to a few years after. This is a little different. What this study is talking about is that even after 2 or 3 years after you have had a COVID-19 infection, your risk of developing complications, either neurological or GI related or cardiovascular, remains high even after 3 years of after having infection. And only after 3 years, we see some decrease in the incidence of this infection in COVID-19 infected patients.
All that said, would the new illness linked to old COVID be harder to treat or cure?
I don't think we have an answer to that question yet. That I think the treatment would still be the same. I think the recovery would still be the same. But having that understanding that, you could be at a higher risk of having strokes, even in young patients, right, who have had COVID-19, and especially if they have been hospitalized, I think their risk of having mini strokes is higher even up 3 years. So that would be something I would change in my practice. Study is asking patients about their COVID exposure and were they hospitalized because of COVID-19 in the last 3 years.
Well, now that we've possibly scared some former COVID patients, what's the takeaway from this?
One of the things I would encourage patients to do is to be aware of their health, regular exercise, diet. Common things that we do to decrease our risk of strokes is eating right, no smoking, regular exercise, and keeping up with their doctor's visit would be what I would do.
So take care of yourself.
And be aware of symptoms that, if you were hospitalized with COVID-19, would be at a higher risk of having cardiac issues, heart disease, mini strokes, GI issues. And if you were to develop those, talk to your provider about seeking help sooner.
Sure.
Don't ignore your symptoms.
That was KERA's Sam Baker. FC Dallas won against the LA Galaxy on Saturday 2-0, and the Home Run Derby game will start at 8 p.m. at Globe Life Field as part of MLB's All-Star Week. If you spend any time at all around preteens, you've probably noticed that kids take skincare a lot more seriously than they used to. Hot off the back of the TikTok glass skin trend, pre-adolescent kids are now running to buy pricey multi-step skincare products that promise poreless, glowing skin. Dermatologists, however, are kind of wary. They say more and more pediatric patients are coming in complaining of rashes or bad reactions to harsh products. Most dermatologists recommend prepubescent kids use a gentle face cleanser and moisturizer with SPF once a day. They also urge parents to take kids struggling with specific skin conditions or acne to a dermatologist for appropriate product recommendations. Today's the last day to catch Eamon, the Ultimate Texan, at the Palace Art Center. For more info, head on over to kera.org/calendar. Thank you so much for starting your day with me today. I am so glad you take a few minutes to listen each morning. Be sure to subscribe to the Wake Up with KERA newsletter, also by yours truly at keranews.org, and check us out on Instagram and Threads at KERATX. I'm Katherine Hobbs. We'll chat again tomorrow.